Hey guys, it's week 10, and I have no idea what I'm going to do next week because I do not have 10 or 11 fingers. So I will have to figure that out between now and then. But today I have something really interesting. At least I thought it was interesting. Talking about Samson. This last week before, I really feel like the Lord put the story of Samson on my heart, and so I went back and I did some research on it. And growing up, I loved this story. I loved hearing the feats of strength and just like the miraculous things that Samson was able to do because of his miraculous strength. But growing up, I see I see it a little different. First of all, just just as a just to get everybody on the same page, Samson, he was born. He was chosen to be, he was consecrated from birth to God. In his case, he couldn't cut his hair. He took a vow not to cut his hair. That's where his strength lied. Um, but he was consecrated to God from birth. Was one. God gave him his strength. So that's the second thing. God gave him his strength. It didn't come from himself. Didn't come from anybody. It came from God. Um, and he was a judge. Samson was a judge, and the judges were supposed to uphold justice. They were supposed to see that the law was getting was getting followed. They weren't there to make new laws. It wasn't politics where they didn't sit around and vote on things and you know hit their gavels and laws came into place. Like, they were there to see that the law was being lived. The law was being what it was supposed to be there for. So Samson, consecrated to God from birth, God given miraculous strength, right? And he was chosen to be a judge. Um, Samson, much like a lot of us, uh, he let himself get in the way of how he does things. If you think about it, I picked three instances that I thought, when I was growing up, I thought these were some of the coolest stories in the Bible. And now going back and looking at them, understanding a little bit more about it, it's a little different now that I understand it more. But the first one, when in Judges 14, where Samson, he comes up on that lion, and with his bare hands, he kills this lion and leaves the carcass on the side of the road. That's pretty cool in itself. Well, the next day or a couple of days later or whatever it is, he's coming back down that road, and he sees the lion dead on the carcass on the side of the road. And he looks inside and he sees honey. And he pulls the honey out and he eats it from the carcass. Now, I remember growing up thinking, that's a real man right there. Not only did he kill a lion with his own bare hands, but he's eating honey from it. Like, that's pretty gross. and 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 so he did that because it looked good to him. It was appealing. The honey was sweet. It looked good to his eye, and so he did it. Whatever. Well, and just as a little hindsight, Deuteronomy 14, it talks about not touching anything unclean and not touching the dead, and he wasn't supposed to touch that dead. It was unclean, and so after I know that, now I go back to the story, in Judges 14 and 6 through 9. It's very clear that Samson did, he didn't tell his father, he didn't tell his mother, what he had done. Nothing about killing the lion, nothing about the honey inside the lion. He just kept it a secret. He didn't even, brag about, oh, I killed a lion today. And, I look at it like, well, nobody likes to confess their sin. And who wants to confess sin to their parents? So, that's probably why he didn't say anything. But so right there, because the honey looked sweet, he broke a law. He touched something that was dead. Mind you, he's still a judge. He's supposed to, he's a judge. In Judges 15, this is probably my all-time favorite story ever. Samson, he catches 300 foxes. He ties their tails together. He sets them on fire right by the Philistine crops. And as they're running through on fire, they torch. They just destroy the whole crop. The whole crops. And the thing that struck me now that I read it, before I even read it, when I was little, I just pictured this big behemoth of a man out in the field just tying foxes together. And that's pretty neat. But from the perspective of when I'm reading this, I get to Deuteronomy 14, or I'm sorry, Judges 15, and it says, with a little title title in my Bible, it says Samson's vengeance on the Philistines. And so, he's doing it out of vengeance. He's doing it out of revenge. And later on, after he does this, they retaliate. And then he retaliates more, and it's all out of revenge. And in Deuteronomy 32:35, it speaks against seeking revenge. And so, that's just another example where, revenge looks sweet, revenge looks good. As a person, there's times I want to retaliate, but the Word of God says that revenge is for the Lord. It's not for you. And in this instance, you see Samson breaking that law and taking it in his own means to seek revenge on the Philistines. Okay, the last one is really important. Samson's whole relationship with Delilah. Delilah was a Philistine woman. This should have been a big red flag for him. He was not supposed to be seeking a foreign wife. He was not supposed to be looking at a Philistine woman, but he does anyway. She looks pretty over there yonder. And, he totally, reason leaves him, and, again, it's all about his eyes. It looked good, whatever. Actually, at one point, his parents try to stop him from marrying her, and he replies to them by saying, the only thing that mattered to him was that she was, his exact quote was, "She is right in my eyes." And, so, it's all in his eyes. It's all what he sees. It's all where he goes from it. One of the things that I thought that was really interesting was, later on, of course, Samson spills the beans to Delilah and says that, his strength is in his hair. No razors touched his head, and, you cut his hair, he loses his strength. Well, then she gets him drunk or whatever, cuts his hair, and, and he's weak. The first things that they did when they captured him, before they tied him up and before they mocked him and ridiculed him, they plucked out his eyes. All these things he did was, he saw it was his eyes, and then when they led him astray, and they plucked him out of his head. And I just thought that was interesting to note. But, I'm looking at Samson, and I'm looking at some of the characteristics, and I'm relating them to us, relating them to me, to you, to everybody. Like I said, first off, Samson was consecrated to God from birth. He was, supposed to be set apart to do, chosen to do something for the Lord. And we're chosen. We have a destiny too. And we as Christians are supposed to be consecrated to God. We're supposed to be set apart. We're not supposed to look the same. A lot of times we do, but we're not supposed to. So that's the first likeness. Two, Samson was given his strength, his miraculous strength from the Lord. We're given the tasks that the Lord has for us. He's given us the giftings and the talents and just he's the things he's got set up and stored for you to do. He's made a way already for you to do it. You're already more than capable. So that's another thing that's very similar. Um, like I said with the judges thing, he had a specific task. You have a specific task. Not everybody knows what it is right away, but you're supposed to be seeking that out. You're supposed to be figuring out what the Lord has for you, like what your ministry circle is, or what where you're supposed to be, and the Lord will show that to you. But looking at Samson as a background, we as Christians we're really similar, and another likeness that I saw was the first story with him killing the lion and eating the honey and touching the dead, not telling his parents. One of the things that we like to do as humans when we're caught in sin, or when we know we're breaking the law, when we know we're sinning, we don't want to confess it to anybody. We don't want to talk about it. We want to just put it in the dark corner, put it in the closet, put it up, out of sight, out of mind. We don't want to deal with it. And that's the same thing Samson did. He just snowball effect, and that's what we do. And we can't do that because if at some point the snowball rolling down the hill is going to get so big that it's going to overtake you, and it's going to be a problem. Looking at the 300 foxes, revenge. People are doing stupid things for stupid reasons, and it's all motivated out of revenge. It's somebody did this, so I have to do this. Or the government is doing this wrong, which is provoking me to do this, and it's all out of revenge. And revenge isn't for us. Revenge isn't for us. Revenge is for the Lord, right? We're supposed to be praying for our enemies, but as Christians, it's very easy to get in the habit of not only not praying for your enemies, but thinking of wishing ways to get revenge on them, thinking of ways, and actually, getting revenge on our enemies. Samson's relationship with Delilah. This is the big one. I see a lot of Christians who want to fellowship with bad news. People want to fellowship with people who are not going to encourage them. People who want to fellowship with the world more than they want to fellowship with the church. And it looks right in my eyes, right? It looks right in it feels okay. It looks right, in the flesh. Of course, it's going to look right. But we're called to be set apart. We're called to be consecrated, and obviously you're in the world but not of it. So obviously you have to be around other people. How else are you going to reach out to them and share the love of Christ to people if you don't interact with them? But I see a lot of Christians who, the majority of their time, all they do is fellowship with unbelievers and live like the unbeliever does, and that's not cool. We're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to do that, and it's like we don't let the Lord lead the way. We let the unbeliever lead the way. We let our friends, our unsaved friends, set the theme of where we're going to go. And the Lord's already told us what to do and already told us where to go, and all we have to do is listen and put our feet where He's told us to. Stand where we're planted and take a step when He speaks. But a lot of times we don't do that. We want to do what looks right in our eyes, and Samson, people can look at it and say the end result, he prayed, he got his strength back, and he tore out the pillars and took out so many, with himself, of course. People can look at that and say that was victorious, and I guess that was a victory in some sense. But Samson had a purpose, and he wasted it. And yeah, he did. Perfect time, perfect place. He got rid of so many, Philistines. He got rid of so many people. But let's just think about this for a second. If he had done things the right way from the beginning, how much more of an impact could he probably have had? You know, anybody who looked up to him as an example, I've been thinking about, people looking at you, people watching us a lot lately, working with a bunch of little kids, and they're watching, and so I'm thinking about that a lot. And all the people that watched Samson do all the stuff that he did, that heard the stories, that makes it okay for them to do it now. And so, we have to be careful of that too. Not only when we break laws or whenever we sin and make mistakes, not only do we affect ourselves, we affect a lot of people. And, like I said, I just thought it was really interesting that the first thing that was taken from Samson was the thing that justified it. It was his eyes. He comes right out and says, "She is right in my eyes." And so what she does leads to him getting his eyes plucked out. We have to be careful what we're looking at, what we're letting come in. We have to filter the things from the outside that's not supposed to be there. Because if we don't, when we see it, we'll bring it all in. We'll bring it all in. And we will just totally screw it up. Because all we do is have filth in there, and we're not going to be able to, you can't clean a floor with dirty mop water. And so we're kind of the same way. We're not going to be able to witness. We're not going to be able to serve in the church properly if all we're taking is garbage and filth. If 90% of what our inlet is dirty water, you better believe that the majority of what's going to be coming out of us is going to be dirty water. You can think of any plant that brings water in. It could clean it up a little bit, but ultimately it's only as good as what you start with. I don't know about you. You could filter toilet water and make it clean, but if I know that's where it's from, I don't want to drink it. I don't want to drink it at all. And I don't know what that says about me, but I don't want to drink toilet water, filtered or unfiltered. And so as Christians, while we're witnessing to unbelievers, we have to remember that they don't want to drink toilet water either. And so it doesn't matter if we look the part sometimes. If we put it in a nice little cup, throw some ice cubes in there, maybe even put on an umbrella. It doesn't matter if we look the part. If we, if it's toilet water, it's toilet water. So, I guess we have to start keeping our eyes on what's going to build us up and just watch what we're taking in. And that's the point of today, is watch what you're taking in, watch what you let influence you. You know what's right or wrong. It's been, it's already been put on your heart from before birth. You know when you're sinning, you know when you're not. And we want to be effective. I said this 2 weeks ago, and you want to be effective. Nobody wants to not be effective. So how do we be effective? We live effective lives. And the only way to be effective is to live an effective life is just to be true to what we say that we're doing, true to our calling. And part of that is to be set apart. We're supposed to be consecrated to God, not the world. And so we need to be doing what the Father wants us to do, even if it doesn't look like the best, cleanest, funniest, you know, prettiest option out there. We need to be following what the Father would have us do. So, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting to come kind of comparing Samson to us. There's a lot of similarities. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, I just encourage you to watch what you're taking in your eyes. They will lead you astray. If you let your eyes be the judge, you will fall every time. We're not supposed to see the world through our eyes. The Lord wants us to see through His eyes. He wants us to go out and be effective for Him, and the only way to be effective for Him is if we see through His eyes. Watch what you monitor what you let in. And also monitor what you let out. Sometimes best intentions come out wrong and bad, and so monitor what's coming into your life. Monitor what's coming out. That's all I got for this week. We want to be like Samson in the fact that he was mighty and that his strength came from the Lord, and that he did great things. But we don't want to be like Samson in the fact that he did great things for himself, and that he let his own sin lead him to his death. So, yeah, that's all I got. I just encourage you to just watch what you're doing, watch where you're going, watch what you're letting in to your eyes and your ears, and just what you're letting influence you. And, you have a good week. God bless. Talk to you next week.